Hi everyone, nice to meet you. So this is the HACS community. It's a nice community seen from stage, believe me. Today I will talk about Hex Machina. You never heard this name, I think so. But before entering deeply in the topic, I would like to dedicate this talk to a girl. She will recognize herself, I think so, because we work in the same company. And she inspired me with work from the last month. This morning, it was shiny, and I was walking around. I was in the Luxembourg Garden, you know, this park. And I got a thought with the sun. I say, it should be a nice day to fall in love. So, I'm Francis. I'm software architect at Dockler Holding. I'm in computer programming till 12. Now I'm 45, so it's a long time ago. And I did many things, but programming is a real passion for me. There's music and there's programming. Yeah, it brings all my life, it occupies all my life. Why I'm talking about that? Because I will talk today about a framework, but a framework is not just a tool, it's a vision as well. And this vision came from childhood. I was a kid, like everyone in this room, and I was playing with toys, you know. And my really great pleasure was to enjoy and to build virtual worlds and to make some kind of cities and redesigning streets and people walking around. I remember we will do that sometimes the whole day with my father, and it was in papers, and we cutting some stuff, and after we burn everything. It was crazy, and I like it. So why I'm talking about it, because I think what I want to deliver today as well, this is the tool, but this is the vision as well. And the vision is to bring back this childhood, you know, these toys. So today I will show you the toys from my bedroom that I got during 12 years or something like that. Because it begins in 2003. 2003, I'm a Flash developer. I stopped music and I work in the web industry. And I started to develop this framework called Pixlib. And it was a great adventure. And the adventure was more about grabbing some knowledge and improving myself. So what I did, it was a Flash MX. And I was very interested by reading books and grabbing knowledge from other technologies. You know, the Flash ecosystem was very close to itself. It was the past history of scripting animations tools. And I was interested by software engineering, I mean, in a more larger way. So this is the story of Pixlib. It began in 2003, and as you can see, there were many versions. It was not so well used compared to frameworks like Robot Legs or Pure MVC, but we got a community and strong agencies working with it. So the last version was in 2009. It was my closed version because I was for many years after a freelancer. I was bored to work for companies. I will go back till 2 or 3 years. Yeah, I worked for King, for Candy Crush, and now I work for Dockler Holding. And when I came for Dockler Holding, they worked with Robot Legs, and we shared, we discussed a lot, and I bring with me this Pixlib adventure, and we choose to make Hex Machina. So 2015, we got Hex Machina, but sadly and badly, because we work for the web industry, the Flash player was dead. So what are the solutions now? Where we can go, because we want to make big web application inside the browser. When I talk about big applications, it's like we got with Hex Machina at this time in Dockler Holding, an application with 5,000 classes and 100 modules, so it's a great big application to maintain in long life cycle, you know. So how can I target the browser, no? And I want to keep a statically typed language. I don't want to go for something dynamic, because it's a part of the vision. We will see later why. So my first solution was to try TypeScript, because TypeScript is a fashion. Everyone is using TypeScript. TypeScript is everywhere. Everyone is talking about TypeScript. So the company say, why we won't use TypeScript? Yeah, we should use TypeScript. We should go TypeScript. And the JavaScript developers say, we will go TypeScript. Come on, shut up. You are a Flash developer. You don't know. TypeScript is the future. But it was a failure. After 1 month of developing, I started to port the framework, the Ex Machina framework. And because it's based, we will see later as well, on contract. This framework is based on secured collaboration. I realized and I managed there was no interface at compile time, too bad. And even with the experimental decorators, I can figure out a way and an escape. So I choose to go to a language that I know very well, because in 2004, I did my first talk at Amsterdam with Nicolas. It was the first announcement of Hacks. And I remember this conversation in the restaurant with Nicolas and say, you should go for Hacks, you should try Hacks. And I say, come on, why I will go for Hacks? I mean, I want to keep something that is compatible with the mainstream technology. I'm a Flash developer. And now it's 2016. I went for Hacks. I discovered Hacks because I didn't spend time before to do it. And I got a lot of regrets because it's crazy what I did compared to the other versions of the framework. I mean, it's the same library that we did in ES3, but with so much extra benefits. So which kind of framework is it? And what is the goal of this framework? What we try to achieve? Is it a monolith framework? No. We split it in many repositories. We didn't want to reproduce the failures we got with Pixlib. We want to propose for people to use some part of it. If you just want to use the injector, you will use the Hexinject. If you want to use just the core with the event dispatcher, for example, we got dispatcher solutions with many implementation and different implementation, you will use the core. Our golden principles are very simple. I think every developer that tries to make front-end applications and long life cycle applications, I mean, it's like operating system, you know, you have to maintain in life for long duration. So what you want? You want secure collaborations. You want some components that can work together and with security. Nothing will break. They will be designed to collaborate, to work in the same ecosystem. We want reusability for sure, because when the business arrives and say, come on, you already developed it last month, why we can't reuse it? So we want that. And we want for sure, because this is a kind of golden rule of the software engineering, low coupling as much as possible. I don't have to go in details for this one. Secure collaboration. So we didn't invent anything, but I prefer anyway, to summarize. So we design by contract. So we choose interfaces for the specs, for hiding the implementation, and easy team workflow. You know about that. I don't want to go more about this topic. Code reusability, how we do provide that? We figure out, till very long time with Pixlib, to invent a modular system with configurable components. How is it working? It's working by every component, software component inside an application is a module. And the module is a micro application. I searched on the web to see if there was some literature about it. We talk a lot about microservice, but not about micro applications. And I really believe on this way. And if you got micro applications, if you got, for example, I don't know, a complex applications with video, chat, and something, and you want to reuse just the video part, it's a video application, you know. So this is how it works. And how does it work? Every module belongs to a unique domain. I make a little picture to figure out. So you got a domain, just a string, and a module belongs to it. This is the main rule and the base rule of the framework. So a module is a micro application. It's got MVC. We got a mini MVC implementation. Ex Machina is not limited of one MVC implementation. You can even use MVP. You can use a strong MVC. I won't go in much details as well because there are a lot of stuff to say about the other stuff. So private event bus, controller, controllers, model, models. This is a module, and this is a standalone application. I just put a diagram. If you are interested by it, you will find it on the website. It's a common event flow of micro applications. Nothing new here. I think it's a common MVC implementation, but we try anyway in the details. If you observe how it is implemented, I mean by code. I don't want to showcase code today. We will have a workshop Monday if you are interested more. It's MVC. We saw together component reusability. Now, how we manage the last point, low coupling. There are two ways for managing low coupling. We prefer runtime coupling. So, inversion of control. This is a Spring inspiration. The Hollywood principle, nothing to say, nothing to add. So, I put summarize about dependency injection and about inversion of control. So it's very simple for people that will be really surprised about what is it. It's you need something, you define a contract. So what I need a bartender, but I can't rely on a specific bartender because if this girl is not there, I will be really disappointed at runtime. Okay? So this is how does it work. And my assembler, this is the boss of the application, will provide at runtime this nice girl. This is dependency injection. But more than dependency injection, we want automatic dependency injections. So the inspiration here is from Spring, but more in the Flash community from Swift Suspenders. And we developed Xinject. Why we didn't use Minject? Or why we didn't use Swift Suspenders port for hacks? So I got few responses, few answers, I mean. The problem of Minject is it's handled by macro, and we want polymorphism and injection, dynamic injection at runtime, so it can't handle them. And Swift Suspenders was too heavy and too unstable in the hacks version. So we developed this one, and this one depends on another repository that is called X annotation, and this guy is doing the dirty job. At compile time, it takes the signatures, it handles all the reflections, all the metadata, and make a footprint in JSON to be handled directly by the injection system because the structure is understood and well-known and super performant. So Xinject, nothing really new, but I want to list the features. So property, methods, and constructor with annotations, mapping by type, optionally. Well, we know about that. Okay, injector chaining, we kept it. Event-driven, for sure, exception handling, and support, because we need it in the framework, post-construct, and pre-destroy. After, we are always, in low coupling. We want, this is the craziest part, and this is my favorite part. And this is the part that came from Pixlib. Till 2003, it was already the case. We want to build configurable architecture. And this is the Spring inspiration. So we will use a domain-specific language, a DSL. You know what is it, guys? So it's just a language like HTML that defines some rules. And this rules is to configure, to assemble your application. So how does it look like? If I take the human diagram that you saw before, you will do it like this. So every node got an ID. You can define instances. You can pass types, as you can see. And you can make, this is a nice thing, injection by DSL, not with, just by injection, with the injector. So we use it a lot in the company. We got like many XML files. The guys were very surprised when I arrived with this concept, and they say, come on, I want to code AS3 because it was in AS3 at this period. Why I will go for XML and do some crazy things? So what's the philosophy? I should tell before, it's kind of design. It proposes to the team to think in another way. When you do implementation, you will code in HACS, and when you do configurable code, you will code with the DSL. So you split implementation and configuration, and in this way, you bring reusability. What I wanted to add before, the guys were surprised at start, and after they over-abuse it, you know. Like when you propose something new and that is nice, they discover, they try, and they put so many files and configuration and files, so you have to find the right balancing. So how does it work? So it's two different ways of working. We got an XML parser. It communicates with the assembler. So, for example, if you need JSON or YML, you can re-implement the XML parsing. It's a really splitted part. You can have your own protocol. You go to the context factory with many factories for building many objects and many stuff, and it generates your runtime application. This is the first part. And the second part, and this is the extra benefits of HACS, because of the power of HACS, now I did this part the same, but at compile time. So it means your DSL will be sparked, all your files, and it will generate, because for now we support just, because we are front-end, AS3 and JS, pure JS code. And it means it's super performant in this way. You understand the concept, everyone, yeah? So this is an hello world, nothing to add. As you can see, string is a default type. After, if you have to pass over types, you will specify by the type attribute. This is a simple module creation. I think we already see it before. This is, for example, a service locator. As you can see, it's a very, it could be, expressed by a compressed language, but I try to keep it near the HACS API. So this is a map. When you map the contract to the implementation. This is what we saw before, the constructor injection. You pass your service locator to, so this is a really simple example. So after compilation, I just put something. As you can see, the JavaScript code is generated, and your XML file doesn't exist anymore. You can see the service locator is built, the reference has passed, everything is assembled, and the things are coupled. So because of HACS, and thanks to HACS, and thanks to the HACS community, because I asked many questions on the mailing list, because macro were very new for me, we could do this crazy job. We got a recursive file inclusion. So one file can call many files, that can call many files, that can call many files. It's like when you are face to the mirror. This is one of the latest features. We check the DSL at compile time. So we got, we started to implement, errors with underline and positions. Like that. Missing ID, file missing, some stuff like that. And it's not ended. I will add more and more. And at the end, I want to achieve full control of the application building. So the second part of local coupling is messaging. We didn't invent something great. But you remember about the domain? Each model got a domain. So we got like kind of a radio channel, and any module can communicate by any module by subscription. So why I'm talking about that? Because this is the whole application. You got all your modules after, and they can send messages, to the domain dispatcher. And after, because maybe module A is not capable to communicate with module B, because before they were not part of the same application. So this is the system. How does it work? You can patch some strategies, some adapters. There are many ways, some proxy to make them communicate and translate the information. That's why and how you bring reusability, and why it works so well, because of the DSL. Because you will bring this red part by DSL without breaking your modules. So it's on the website as well, exmachina.org. And the last part, it's about states, because what would be a nice application without states? So we got a state machine with a state controller that do what it should do, make transitions from state A to state B by executing commands. And why is it nice? because it's working inside your application context. Each application context got a state machine and can trigger enter and exit commands, and in the context scope or in the module scope. So it's very powerful. You can't have the both because it will be dangerous. And I made an example. This is a state flow described with DSL, a simple one. So for example, you can see an ID. This is the reference of the state, and you see I couple this command to the assembling start. So when you will enter to this state, you will trigger this command. Another context state, but it will be executed inside the module scope. We got a unit test framework. So it's a normal one, JUnit with some tools for browser, for Flash develop, from some stuff. I think when Hector will talk about Flash develop, he will talk about it. We got a logging API as well, with a powerful system when you can filter by module, by domains, by stuff, so you can inspect everything and filter the right information. So I would like to finish, but what's next? What will be the next step? We want to create multi-context. It's already available, but it's not available by DSL. So what does it mean? It means you got a context with many modules, and now we want a context aggregates over context that aggregates over context. So it makes macro applications that can contain over macro applications, like that. As you can see, I got a video context, a chat context, so this world over applications, and I can reuse them in another application. The last other planned addition are better high level of code coverage, for sure. That's one everyone should target. More platform texting, more articles. Add a state transition to DSL compiler. This is the last part that I didn't have time to add. And our next project will be XDOM. We want to target the DOM and to compile HTML files as well, with the same philosophy. And full context error checking for sure. So that's it. Any questions? And I just want to add another information. We hire as well. We are looking for 7 Hacks developers here.
I have a question, if I may. It's very interesting perception, but usually when a domain paradigm, you have to manage some domain names. Like if I'm making a chat application, I might call it chat, or I might call it chatting. And then if I use different names, no one can really reuse my application. So you are planning to make any domain?
It's more simple than that. Look at that. Because when you import, you will rename your application context that is imported. You know what I mean? So for example, imagine your old video.xml applications got the name Francis. And it was like that, and it was used by the DSL compiler. When you will remake another application, you will rename it by import. Everything is defined by DSL, so that's why I insist very strongly that nothing that should be configurable should be part of your code, but should be part of the DSL. This is how you split the information. Yes?
I'm having a quite strong Java background, so basically this looks like you're reprogramming Spring application framework kind of flavor in Hex. I just have one question. Why did you decide to go for XML for the DSL?
Yeah, I know, because Spring did the other way, and they totally go for the metadata implementation. I don't know. I got kind of affect. Maybe it's like childhood, you know, for this kind of descriptions. And I feel very fluent and easy to work with it. So we already started. I didn't showcase code, but we already started as well to use metadata for describing configurations. But what I like the most, and it's contained just in one sentence, is you got two code base. You got your configurable code base, and you got your source code base. And that's what I like in this concept, yeah. No problem. Yes?
Just one question. You do many things at compile time, but do you have a way to override dependency injection at runtime? For example, with your video player, I want third part to customize my application with its own model just by overriding a part of my micro application.
So you want to change dynamically at execution time?
Yes.
Yes. Yes, that's the role of DSL. And it's better than that because it's a very big code base and framework. There are many features. But for example, I can just mention two examples. You can have a mapping list in your DSL, and you say, we saw one anyway. One contract for one implementation, one contract for one implementation. So this one is at compile time. But in the other way, you got some other attributes that can make the same job for some nodes, and it's called map manus type. And you can map an instance, an implementation, or contract to an instance and implementation to a contract, to an interface. Yeah, this is possible as well. Yeah. You got the two ways of doing it. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And that's why I should add this stuff. That's why we should to redevelop our own injector, because this injector is a polymorphic injector. I mean, it's based on two contracts. That is a micro contract and a macro contract. And at first, I would like to use minject, but it was not possible because it was relying on macro. And we need this. We need the runtime stuff and the contract stuff.
All right. Don't forget the workshop on Ex Machina Monday afternoon with Francis. So thank you, Francis.
Yeah, thanks everyone. Thank you so much. Thank you.